Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this special event this afternoon, where we're going to be tackling a very interesting issue. Before we kick off with the in-person comments and statements here, we'd like to start with a small video from the principals of UN Habitat and UNEP.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, disposable textiles and fast fashion are fueling a growing environmental crisis. Land and rivers and oceans are becoming more polluted from cheap and easily discarded items. And according to our data here at UNEP, the textile value chain is responsible for up to an estimated 8% of global carbon emissions. And if this cycle of overproduction and waste continues unchecked, millions of tons of textiles will continue to be discarded every year. But change is possible. Consumers can buy only what they need, and if they can afford to, prioritize long-lasting and high-quality clothes. Industry can strive to design affordable clothes that are durable, recyclable, and safe. And governments can launch measures that help circular businesses to be more competitive. And frankly, we as consumers can do our bit. If we have a little tear, we can repair it, like I did on this jacket. Put some sequins there, and it still works. We extend our deep appreciation to the Republic of Turkey for the continued ambitious leadership in advancing the zero waste agenda. My thanks also to Her Excellency First Lady Erdogan for elevating this challenge to the global stage. We look forward to strengthening our collaboration with Turkey, as well as all other countries and partners, to secure a more sustainable and waste-free future. On this International Zero Waste Day, let us all strive to reduce our fashion footprint. And I thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, cities are generating more waste than ever. Every year, over 2 billion tons of municipal waste pile up, with fashion and textiles making up a growing share. Fast fashion is worsening the crisis, filling cities with waste and polluting land and water. In informal settlements and slums, where waste collection is scarce, the impact is even more severe. But cities can lead the way. Consumers can rethink their choices, buying less and choosing sustainable options. Industry can innovate, designing textiles that last longer, can be reused or safely recycled. Governments can support circular businesses that reduce textile waste. And cities can take the lead, investing in waste management, promoting reuse, and integrating informal waste workers into the solution. I want to commend the outstanding zero waste initiatives selected by the United Nations Secretary-General's Advisory Board on Zero Waste. The board received over 200 submissions from individuals, companies, and organizations in the fashion and textile industry worldwide. It is truly inspiring to witness so many proactive efforts driving change. We extend our deep appreciation to the Republic of Turkey for its leadership in advancing the zero waste agenda, and to Her Excellency First Lady Emine Erdogan for bringing this issue to the global stage. UN Habitat looks forward to strengthening collaboration with all partners as we work together toward a future with zero waste. On this International Day of Zero Waste, let us act. A waste-free future starts in our cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of our executive directors of UNEP and Habitat. It now gives me great pleasure to invite His Excellency Ambassador Burak Akpar from the Permanent Representative of Turkey to the UN here in Geneva for his welcoming remarks. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, sir. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's indeed a pleasure for me to welcome you all to our event marking the celebration of the International Day of Zero Waste. I should like to, of course, start by expressing my very sincere gratitude to UNEP, to UN Habitat, and the Geneva Environment Network and my appreciation to all these esteemed panelists, everyone on this dais, for agreeing to bring their valuable time and insights. The journey of zero waste in Turkey has begun in 2017 with the personal commitment of our First Lady, Her Excellency Emine Erdoğan, to promote sustainable production and consumption habits and to encourage the efficient use of resources. Her personal dedication has then grown into a global initiative. In 2022, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on zero waste, designating March 30th as the International Day of Zero Waste to be observed annually. Turkey sponsored this resolution alongside 105 other countries. In line with that resolution, an advisory board of eminent persons was established by First Lady Erdoğan and UN Secretary General Guterres to share best practices and success stories and to promote local and national zero waste initiatives. The primary challenge before every one of us is to transform our thinking and actions, to make zero waste a matter of course, the rule, not the exception. As Her Excellency has emphasized, adopting zero waste as a way of life presents a clear path towards reversing environmental degradation. Building on this vision, Turkey will launch an international forum on zero waste and climate change in 2025, this year, as a platform for dialogue and collaboration among countries, sectors, and relevant organizations. Dear colleagues, the International Day of Zero Waste underscores the significance of enhancing waste management practices worldwide and emphasizes the need to promote sustainable consumption and production to address the global challenge of waste pollution. Turkey's Zero Waste Project serves as a model, we believe, of our commitment to fighting pollution, preserving resources, and supporting the SDGs. Our target is to increase the recycling rate of waste to up to 60% by 2035 from 35% today. When we recall that only in 2017 this rate was as low as 13%, the progress becomes already significant. We carry out work on the recycling and reuse of textile waste and continue our efforts to collect textile waste and deliver them to those in need, reuse and recycle them. We also transform end-of-life textile products into valuable resources, produce new types of yarn and fabric from recycled materials with an innovative approach to waste management, bringing waste into the economy and developing new business models. International Geneva brings together diversity of stakeholders and perspectives. As such, it is clear that not only UN organizations, but also the business sector and producers are increasingly growing up to the task in this important endeavor, and we encourage them to continue along this path. I believe that future of zero waste and circular economy is within our reach. I wish all contributors and participants a scintillating event and discussion which in itself would help bring us closer to this objective. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. We will now hear some opening video remarks from the Secretary General and from First Lady Erdoğan.
This year's International Day of Zero Waste puts the focus on fashion and textiles, and rightly so. Earth is a fashion victim. Textile production often uses thousands of chemicals, many of them harmful to people and the environment. It devours resources like land and water, and it belches out greenhouse gases, inflaming the climate crisis. Yet clothes are being produced at a staggering rate, and textile wastage is huge. Every second, the equivalent of a garbage truck full of clothing is incinerated or sent to landfill. We need a different approach, one that delivers on the commitment in the Sustainable Development Goals for sustainable production and consumption. There are signs of hope. Consumers are increasingly demanding sustainability. Important initiatives are bringing together business, industry associations, civil society, and more to drive sustainability across the sector. They include the Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action, convened by the United Nations, and the Fashion Pact, launched by the government of France. And the United Nations Advisory Board on Zero Waste is uniting partners to end waste, including from textiles, and to help meet the SDGs. But we must do more to secure change. Consumers through their choices, young people and civil society through advocacy, governments through regulations promoting sustainability and decent jobs, and businesses through embracing circularity, waste reduction, and resource efficiency across their supply chains. On this International Day for Zero Waste, let's all commit to ensure fashion sense makes good sense for people and planet.
Kıymetli hanımefendiler, beyefendiler, sevgili gençler ve çocuklar, sizleri muhabbetle selamlıyorum. Bu yıl Uluslararası Sıfır Atık Günü'nün 3. yılını kutluyoruz. Bu seneki kutlamalar için moda ve tekstilde sıfır atığa doğru temasını seçtik. İstedik ki bu sektörün çevre kirliliğindeki yüksek payını enine boyuna tartışalım. Süratle esen moda rüzgarının yıkıcı etkilerine birlikte bakalım. Haydi gelin işe giymediğim giysiler nereye gidiyor sorusuyla başlayalım. Her bir saniyede bir çöp kamyonu dolusu giysi ya yakılıyor ya da dünyanın atık depolama sahalarına gönderiliyor. Üzerimizden kolayca çıkarıp attığımız kıyafetleri doğa üzerinden çıkarıp atamıyor. Çiçeklerle kaplanması gereken yeryüzü atık kıyafetlerle kaplanıyor. Tekstil sektörü her yıl 215 trilyon litre su kullanıyor. Sırf rengini beğenmediğimiz için attığımız kıyafetlerle litrelerce suyu maalesef boşa harcıyoruz. Su kıtlığıyla mücadele eden milyonların hayatı bu yüzden her gün biraz daha zorlaşıyor. Okyanuslara karışan trilyonlarca mikroplastiğin %9'u tekstil sektöründen geliyor. Masmavi gezegenimizin rengi plastiklerle soluyor. Elyaf üretimi için kullanılan araziler milyarlarca benzersiz canlı organizmayı yeryüzünden siliyor. Birçok tür hızla kaybolan güzellikler arasında yerini alıyor. İşte bu yüzden modada yavaşlamanın, tekstilde doğayla kucaklaşmanın zamanıdır. Bunun için tek yapmamız gereken döngüsel üretim ve tüketim modellerine geçmektir. Döngüsellik her şeyi geri kazanmaya hedefler. Tıpkı bizim ekosistemi geri kazanmaya hedeflediğimiz gibi. Değer ve verimlilik üretir. Tam da dünyanın ve insanlığın hak ettiği gibi. Sorumlu bir üretimi ve sorumlu bir tüketimi gerektirir. Şu anda en ihtiyacımız olan çözüm gibi. Çöpe atılan atıkların %60'ı geri kazandırılabilir durumdadır. O halde onları atık olmaktan kurtaralım. Bir eşyayı en kullanılamaz olduğu noktada yeni bir amaçla buluşturmak ona ömür katar. İleri dönüşüm işte tam olarak budur. Eskiden olduğu gibi kıyafetlerimizi nesiller arası yolculuklara çıkaralım. Sevdiklerimiz arasında el değiştiren kıyafetler anıların taşıyıcısı olsun. Değerlerine değer katılsın. Bir kıyafetin giyilme süresini sadece 2 katına çıkararak bile sera gazı emisyonlarını %44 azaltabiliriz. Yani çözüm biziz. Şunu hiç unutmayalım. Moda insanın kendine yakışanı giymesi ise insana en çok iyilik yakışır. Türkiye olarak sıfır atık projesiyle Sadece 2017-2023 yılları arasında 59,9 milyon ton atığı geri kazandık. Bu sayede kesilmeyen 498 milyon ağaç dünyaya oksijen vermeye devam ediyor. Önlenen 5,9 milyon ton sera gazı emisyonu sürdürülebilir bir gelecek umudunu güçlendiriyor. Boşa harcanmayan 819 milyon metreküp su adil kaynak kullanımına hizmet ediyor. Bu başarı hepimizin. Gelin siz de sıfır atık hareketine gönül vermiş milyonların arasına katılın. El ele verelim, atık kirliliğini hep birlikte yenelim. Gelecek nesillere insanlığın en güzel başarı hikayesini bırakalım. Uluslararası Sıfır Atık Günü'nü bir kez daha kutluyor, kaynaklarımızın hiç tükenmediği, adil, sağlıklı ve huzurlu bir dünya diliyorum.
Thank you very much indeed, First Lady, for reminding us of the breadth of this important issue and how managing waste and textile waste tackles many, many parts of the environment. I'll just take a few minutes to share with you some of Habitat's reflections. This is a subject close to my heart. I'm a public health engineer by profession and have worked lots on solid waste management over the years. And yes, we've heard already from the speeches that the level of waste that's being produced is increasing, and it's predicted to go from about 2 billion tons today to about 3.4 billion tons by 2050. So this consumerist society that we live in is only going to get worse, and this is driven by, of course, a variety of events, not just consumerism, increasing urbanization, as you heard from my executive director. But there is a huge opportunity for us to change the way we tackle these topics. And a lot about this is not just managing waste that we produce now, minimizing waste in the first place, but changing the mindset so we reduce waste production. Going back to a little of the history, prior to the SDGs, waste of any form was not monitored. It was up to individual governments to monitor waste from solid waste, liquid waste, and air pollution. It was only the SDGs which saw this final acknowledgement that we need to understand how we're polluting our society. And going back to the MDG period, we remember that, yes, we used to monitor things like water and sanitation, but there was nothing on waste management. The SDGs were absolutely instrumental in bringing in this level of monitoring into to a higher political level. And UN Habitat and UNEP work very closely in the process to assist member states in working out how we manage and measure this waste. You've often heard the expression, you can't manage it if you can't measure it. So we did a lot of work to put in place the measuring mechanisms for both the production of waste under SDG 11.3 and also under SDG 12.4, which of course relates to the recycling. So, you know, it's only in the relatively recent history that we've started to actually quantify where the problem is. And that's why now, today, we have a good handle. We're halfway through the SDG period, and we now have a much greater idea of the level of pollution that we're dealing with. Again, casting my mind back to, you know, 10, 20 years ago, there was an urge at one point to put everything in a landfill. Then incineration came along. All these disposal methods have negative environmental consequences, and the only real way is to address the problem at source. And so that's why the whole concept of zero waste is so important. And when you look at the sectors that produce waste, of course, the fashion industry, the textile industry is one of them. As I said, we heard from the First Lady about the impact of overproduction and overuse and the discarding of waste textiles brings, not just to natural resources, but through pollution, through the amount of water used in production, through the production of hazardous chemicals. So all of these things, if we tackle waste at source, we can deal with. So I'm not going to spend much more time talking about this. We have a whole host of marvelous speakers here, and I would like to hand over to my dear colleague, in UNEP for his comments and contributions. Thank you. Over to you, Stephen.
Well, thanks so much, Graham. Great to be with you today, with you and Habitat. In a way, co-hosting this event, but really the real host is the government of Turkey. And I would like to recognize at the outset, Ambassador, the tremendous leadership of your country that we've heard from your First Lady. But I think back to 2022 when the resolution was put on the table in New York, and it was just amazing to see how more than 100 countries came together and said, this is important. We are going to move forward towards Zero Waste Day. So just recognizing the tremendous leadership of your country. Now, for UNEP, this is a no-brainer. If you look at waste, waste is the indicator of an economy that's not producing enough value. It's not getting enough value out of the economy, it's producing waste. And that's something that ultimately we need to reduce, because as an indicator, it says we're not doing a great job in terms of efficiency. The more waste that comes out of the back end of the economy, the less we're getting in terms of value from the resources going in. And the resources going in are significant. It's more than 100 billion tons per year, according to the International Resources Panel. 100 billion tons per year are metabolized by the global economy to produce over $100 trillion worth of GDP. Now that's good because we like GDP. It produces jobs, it produces incomes. It's very important. But that 100 billion tons of raw materials or resources, more than 2/3 go up in smoke. And I mean literally smoke. I mean CO2 emissions. And the other third essentially goes into solid waste, liquid waste. It leaches, it goes into landfills, it goes different places. So 2/3 are wasted. And that's really too much. So towards zero waste, it's a really good idea. I wanted to talk a little bit about the textile sector because that's our topic today, and it's being discussed around the world. We heard from the Secretary General, we heard from the First Lady, we heard from Inger Anderson, from your head as well at UN Habitat. A fashion's footprint in textiles isn't necessarily the biggest. If you compare it to energy or agriculture, it's not the biggest in terms of waste, but it's a big one in terms of toxicity. And why is that? That's because a lot of the fibers shred. When you wash your clothes, when they go to the landfill, when you burn them, there's a lot of elements inside of synthetics in particular, and we'll probably hear more about this, that are really bad for human health. They affect childhood development, they affect human cognition, they affect the human immune system. They're really bad. So it's not just the 2 billion tons per year of waste that are going to landfills, projected to 4 billion. It's what happens when it leaches and goes into our food system. It goes into the food chain and ends up in the human body. That's really where the question is. And the studies are really interesting. There's something called the Global Waste Management Outlook that UNEP produces every so often, produced last year. That's where the statistics come from, the 2 billion moving to the 4 billion in terms of solid waste. There was an economic analysis which was done, and the externalities associated. Externalities are costs that are not recorded by the market. They're just, it's the cost of leachate, it's the cost of human health. More than $240 billion a year of externalities from waste that is not being treated. So it's a big issue. It's a very big issue. In terms of textiles, we've heard a lot about the footprint. I just wanted to repeat a few things. Each year, 92 million tons of textiles waste are generated every year. That was where that one dump truck per second from our Secretary General came out. One dump truck of textile waste per second. That's 92 million tons of textile waste every year. Now, that's bad because we all need clothes and it's a total waste. But it's also bad for the climate because every time we produce new clothes, we're emitting more CO2. And we also heard that around 8% of climate emissions, 2 to 8%, come from textile sector. So every time a new garment has to be produced, that's more emissions, that's more water. We heard about the 200 trillion liters of water that are consumed by textile. If they are not used efficiently, reused and repaired, that's just more resources that are being metabolized by our economy. I don't want to steal all the thunder from our panelists because I know there's a lot of expertise here and they actually know a lot more than I do about textiles. I do want to say there's a lot that we can do individually and collectively, and I want to say a few words about that. First of all, there's a huge opportunity inside of making textiles more efficient, more circular. Colleagues at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation estimate over $700 billion opportunity in circular textiles. We'll probably hear more about this, at least I hope we hear more about this. That's a big opportunity. That's for companies, for countries to create those markets, go in and make those markets happen with consumers, with producers and with consumers. So there's a very large opportunity there going forward. So what can we do? If I'm a consumer, and we heard this from Inger Anderson, she showed us her the little rib that she had on her. We can do more to reduce our overconsumption by only buying the items that we need, buying for quality, for example, avoiding fast fashion, and embracing mindful practices. We'll hear more about that. That means also clothes swapping, vintage, right to repair, these different things. If we're an industry, we can innovate around circularity in new markets. We can go for that $700 billion opportunity that's out there. If we are cities, and cities are a hub of innovation, we see cities embracing fashion. We've heard about the industry charter and the different platforms. Cities can innovate like no other spaces because there's so much creativity. And finally, if we are governments, we can set a regulatory frame that helps incentivize circularity going forward. And one of the important parts of that is regulating highly hazardous chemicals that go inside of clothes that eventually get discarded. The highly hazardous chemicals is really a big part of the waste footprint, so that when you move towards zero waste, we're making it easier to deal with our waste. So, thank you very much for this opportunity. Ambassador, thank you very much also. And again, congratulations for this really important day.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. We've heard a lot about partnerships for waste, managing waste, and now we'd like to turn our attention to our next speaker, who's one of the partners in this Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, my dear colleague from UNECE, Director of the Division of Forest, Land and Housing, and the Chair of the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, Paola Dedder. Paola, over to you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Thank you so much, Graham. And good afternoon, everybody. Again, a big thank you to the ambassador. It's the second time we meet this week for another important event, and really want to commend the ambassador for the attention to these topics. It's always forward-looking, so we have appreciated that very much. If you allow me, I'll be a little bit the devil's advocate, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to tell you the results of a paper I prepared, as well as the work we do in the Forest and Land and House Division. I hear a lot, numbers, tons, dollars. I hear a lot how consumers need to avoid fast fashion, but this is everywhere. So how come things don't change? We have the data, we have the information, we know what we should do. So why we are still buying fast fashion? Why is fashion still unsustainable? Why we still have waste all the time? Because it's not an economic problem, it's not an environmental problem, or at least not only, it's mainly a cultural problem. And unless we change the perspective, we are not going to solve the problem. We are not going to solve the problem of waste management. That's why I called my presentation Making Circularity, or we can say Making Zero Waste Fashionable. Because fashion is about culture. So why, despite, and we are all guilty here, I'm pretty sure that nobody can say, I don't do this. Why, despite we know how much waste is produced by fashion, how bad labor conditions are in some countries, why do we go and still buy? Why? Because there is an entertainment component, there is a cultural component, there is an attractiveness of fashion, fast or not fast. Some cannot afford luxury, all the time, so they afford fast fashion. So if it's a cultural component that is important, we have to work on the cultural component, because repeating how many tons, and I'm sorry, I have nothing against this, but you know, I'm working a lot being the chair of the Alliance. I'm hearing these numbers over and over. First of all, I don't quantify them. That give me tons, kilos, for me doesn't mean much. You know, I don't know how big it is. I know it's a huge pile. I see pictures of coastlines in Africa covered by textile waste. Yet, myself as others still buy. So we have to address the cultural component. And I think that all of us should really look at the cultural aspects of zero waste and work together towards that. So let's make circularity fashionable. How do we do that? And I skip to the second one. It's really a matter of having holistic strategies, communicating properly, communicating on the cultural aspects, on the entertainment aspect, and making circularity as attractive as fast fashion. And how do we get there? This is probably a conversation we need to have. But I think it's very, very important not to forget this cultural pillar when it comes to fashion. Now, another hard truth of fashion is that I hear a lot, again, about how much waste is produced, but not of the fact that there are some good guys around and bad guys around. And this is the reality of materials. Some materials, no matter how much we recycle, they are bad to start with. And I'm sorry to use this very elementary adjectives, bad or good, but really we are talking about being good or bad here. And I'm talking about polyester, for instance, which is, and this is a number that is important, is 60% of the production in the world is polyester based. So it's plastic, huh? And Ralph would confirm that polyester equals plastic. It's the same, it's a synonym. So we are wearing plastic, happily, apparently, because it's 60%. And even if we trace it, important traceability, you can trace polyester as much as you want, it remains unsustainable. You can recycle polyester, doesn't matter, remains unsustainable. When you wash it in microplastic, it's waste, invisible waste going to the oceans. So you have on this slide some comparisons that are, and here it comes in my work on forest. We have been looking to the Forest for Fashion program, which now is 10 years old, about the sustainability of materials. And there you as consumer can really make a choice and avoid those materials and no matter what will never be sustainable, and go towards that are by default sustainable because their production is circular. And here we go. I will not take you through this, but you know, just a comparison between tencel or lyocell and synthetic fabrics, right? Even on their wearability is different, not only than looking at climate related issues, emissions, environmental matters, economic, etc. And I think that it's important to, you know, was hearing talking about forests as planting forests, but also as using forests, because maybe you don't know, but you're already using a lot of forest-based materials because viscose comes from plants, but viscose is produced in a way that is not completely sustainable because it's not circular. But when you move to lyocell, so forest fibers, they are circular and they're really the future of fashion when it comes to circularity, zero waste, and possibility of recycling. And wood-derived fibers represent really the only potential source of sustainable clothing sufficient to meet global goals. I think this picture is very relevant because it shows you really the circular loop. When we produce lyocell or similar forest fibers, the water is also recycled, coming to zero waste or very close to zero waste. So when you make a choice as a consumer, just look at the tag and look at the material you're going to put on your body. I compare a lot the fashion industry now to what was the food industry some time ago. We always talked about fast food, and now there is the slow food movement, right? Because all of a sudden we realized we were ingesting and putting in our body toxic food, basically. Well, now we should do the same thing with fashion. Fast fashion very often is toxic, and Ralph next to me will tell you more about the issue of the toxicity of some of the chemicals used. So let's also think in these terms, what do we want for our body? What choices we make? So we are not only wearing recyclable, zero waste products, but also something healthy for us. So last point, I was asked to actually introduce to you the work of the Alliance, and I'm really happy to chair. You have the members listed on the screen. The ITC Ethical Fashion Initiative, actually, see Chloe there, is providing the secretariat. The chair rotates every 2 years. I have the honor to chair this group right now. It's an alliance, which I believe is first of all, is an SDG partnership created so that all UN offices that are dealing with fashion-related matters talk to each other. We meet very often. Bia here is a member from ILO, is really contributing, providing a lot of information and wisdom from that end. And it works, I would say, very effectively because we organize also a lot similar to this to inform people about the importance of addressing the issue of sustainable fashion. There are two members. There are two organizations are on this table and not members yet. One to my left and is Chemical Conventions. Hopefully you will become a member soon. And of course, Graham, UN Habitat now should join. The Alliance actually had an event on cities and fashion, presenting examples of cities like Amsterdam, for instance, and how they recycle garments within the city. Let's not forget that all garments go to a city from a global market, and then they don't go back to a global market, but they are wasted. And that's really, the city can do much to recycle within. So hopefully we will welcome 2 new members. And last but not least, if you allow me, we would like to invite you to the next event. Maybe even the ambassador can join us on the 2nd of April in the margins of the regional forum. We will talk about women leading change in fashion. We always portray women as the victim of fashion, either fashion victims because we like to buy a lot of clothes, or because we are the ones that are in very bad working conditions and non-decent work. This time we wanted to show women also sometimes are leaders and can lead the change in the fashion world. So hopefully you will join us. There will also be, for all of you that are in the Palea pop-up store, throughout the day of the 2nd of April, with products from the Ethical Fashion Initiative. The money we will make through the selling of clothes and various sustainable fashion objects will support Afghan women, young Afghan women, to learn how to embroider. So this is for a good cause, and we hope to have you all there. Thank you, Graham, for indulgence, and thank you again for inviting me today.
Thank you very much indeed, Paola. Well, thank you very much also for being by. I've always considered myself very unfashionable, so maybe there's still hope for somebody like me who always wears the same suit all the time. Anyway, on that note, I'd like to move on to our next distinguished speaker. We've heard already from some of the panelists about the environmental impact and hazardous chemicals related to the fashion industry. So on that note, I'm very pleased to welcome Rolf Pyatt, the Executive Secretary of the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions, who can share with us some words of wisdom. Rolf, over to you.
Thank you very much, Graham, and Ambassador, thank you so much for inviting me to be on this panel. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. And we talk about something that is very close to us. Besides food, I think the second item we have on agenda is nice clothing. I think you will not disagree with me, right? Even we spend more money on clothing than we spend on food. We're supposed to keep us healthy, but that's the nature of things. I'm going to follow the line that Paola has taken, because yes, we have all these statistics. And believe me, this morning when I was getting dressed, I wore my suit, and this suit, you know how old it is? 10 years old, because I remember when I came to Geneva, I bought this in Dubai, and as I was. Now, do I still look fashionable or not? Yes. Now tell me. Yes. Do I look out of fashion? It's 10 years old. Now, it needs retirement very soon. But this is the problem we're talking about. I have my kids. They want 5 pairs of shoes. Each time a new model comes out, they want a new pair. They want a new, jacket. They want new. This is the society we live in, and we need to be realistic. This is the society we live in. When I was growing up, I remember my grandfather had 1 pair of shoes, and that was used on Sundays to go to church. He had 1 pair of clothes, and that was used on Sundays to go to church and to get invited to a wedding or to a funeral. And the rest of the week, he had his work clothes, and then he had 1 other set of clothes that he would go moving around. That was his wardrobe. But today we have walk-in wardrobes. We have so much at our disposal. We've become better, more, affluent, but at the same time, we're destroying our planet. We are seriously destroying our planet because the resources, as mentioned before, in order to provide our people with the kind of fashion hunger that we have, is simply outstanding. Now, let's take, for example, our 3 conventions. Maybe first time you hear about the 3 conventions, the Basel Convention, the Rotterdam Convention, and the Stockholm Convention. They fall under one secretariat. And let me start with the Stockholm Convention. If we start with actually when people start growing cotton, and the demand for cotton is so high that they have to use pesticides to ensure that the grubs and whatever that attack the cotton plants do not affect the production. And we had many years, the Stockholm Convention listed endosulfan, which was a chemical being used around the world. And endosulfan is a chemical that first, forget about the toxic bit for now, but I'm going to give you the real story. This chemical persists in the environment for years and years. It doesn't go away. When you spray it on the cotton plant, even if the rain comes, it goes into the sea, it builds up in the fish, it doesn't go away. And lo and behold, we are on top of the food chain. So we consume the fish, we consume the animals. Where does the endosulfan end up? Nobody is eating us. So we end up with endosulfan in our bodies, which has, of course, impacts on development, pregnancy, old age, all the problems with old age and memory and so on are all related to the chemicals that we are using. That's the first problem. So we had projects around the world to try and change towards more sustainable approaches to growing of cotton, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. Now, endosulfan also builds up in wildlife, and they don't go away. So some of these chemicals, we think they just go away. They don't go away. So they stay toxic for a long time. So cotton on the side. We talked about plastic. Each time we wash, each time we put the clothes somewhere, the little bits of plastic that are in the clothes end up in the water. And this little bit of plastic, which we don't see, ends up in our bodies as well. So they are also long-lasting. They don't go away, guys. They don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. They don't disappear. They just appear in our body. And we've had emerging scientific and medical research now showing that it is found in the brain, found in our heart, found in fetuses. The babies of this generation are born with plastic, ladies and gentlemen. The babies of this generation is being born with plastic in their bodies. This is how bad we have treated ourselves. So while we are looking nice outside, what's happening with the inside? It's being polluted. So I think if I give you honest choice of looking a bit unfashionable on the outside, but healthier inside, I think I know what choice you will make. But this is the situation we face today. And of course, chemicals now come in different forms. I mean, we have all the way in textiles from leather to high-tech machinery making, delicate, for example, satin products, or, using very high-tech technologies. But if you take from leather industry, for example, my nice friend here will talk about exposure. This is the first thing. The people who are actually sewing or putting those clothes together, they are exposed to those chemicals. So the more clothes they produce, of course, they get more salary, I suppose, but probably they end up with the same salary at the end of the month. I mean, you've heard about the story of Nike. Anybody who's done a study in business would have heard the case study of Nike, who used to pay $1 and then sell it for $80. And actually, you know, the difference between the salary of the worker who actually makes the shoe and the salary of the CEO was like 1,000 times in difference. Again, this is the situation. So we're making cheap textiles, but at the same time, the value we're getting from it is only to a very few large companies. Is that fair? Yes, everybody, I think, deserves a quality of life, but those people working on the front lines, do they have health insurance? We know about kids as well, employed in textiles because of the dexterity of their hands. We know the exposure they have to those chemicals and how they grow up, and how then after a certain amount of years, they cannot work anymore because either their nervous system is totally gone chaos. You know, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand, they have no coordination. They have no brain to system coordination. All of this is exposure to the chemicals we've been using in those textiles. So the burden of the textile industry is not only on the environment, it's also on people who work in that industry, and trying to have a decent earning for a living, but they're not getting a fair share of this whole business, and the largest share of this business goes to larger companies, and I think this is something which is important, because if we want to address sustainable fashion, we also need to address the unfairness in the whole aspect, and of course then put in place occupational measures to reduce exposure to chemicals. And here I was talking basically about Stockholm. Now we move to when we are using the clothing. We did a study many years ago on what we call a body burden, which means that how much your body accumulates chemicals on the things that you are wearing, sleeping on, and in rooms. And it was amazing because we chose a few sportmen because they were healthy, doing sports, and top of their game, you know, Olympic sportsmen. And they were shocked with the amount of chemicals that they found in their bodies. And one particular sports person recalled that they had spent 3 months in a particular country and sleeping on a particular bed. And we could trace back this chemical from the particular bed sheets that were being used in this sports facility where she was undergoing the training. So it shows you that when we are wearing those clothes, our body is also absorbing the chemicals that have been put in the lining, on the surface, inside, and everything. And I can imagine, I won't bore you to death on the chemistry that goes into there, but believe me, there's additives and all sorts of chemicals that are put in our clothing that is slowly getting into our body. Finally, when we stop using the clothes and we don't know what to do with it, so we just throw it away. And this is where the Basel Convention comes in. And the biggest problem has been that the accumulation of waste clothes, and here you can imagine where the waste clothes comes from. It's for the more affluent countries than the global north, where there's cheap fashion, accumulation of clothes, and the surplus is put in containers, not put on ships, and is shipped around the world to poorer countries. Sometimes under the guise of helping those countries. For example, in the case of a disaster, we put all our old clothes or clothes we don't need, we put there because they've lost their homes, they've lost everything. So we're helping them to give them clothes. But sometimes just because we've got too much and we don't know what to do with it, so we export to these countries. And I don't know whether you know, there's one country who has a stockpile of waste textiles that you can see from space. That means you can pick it up from a satellite. It's that bad, sir. You can pick it from a satellite. I won't mention the country, you can find out, you can just Google, and you can actually see the textile waste dump of that country from space. That is the situation. Can we solve it? I think we can, because if my grandfather could survive with one pair of shoes, one Sunday set of clothes, and then working clothes during the week, and he was happy, he was very happy. I'm not asking us to go back to one set of shoes and one pair of Sunday clothes and whatnot, but I think we can do better. And the next generation also. Now, you know, we talk, this is my final point, influencers. This is a good one, on social media. What are the young influencers doing? They're selling us cosmetics, clothes. Are they selling us good habits? No. Are they selling us sustainable habits? No. I'm sure all your kids, those of you who are kids, tell you they want to be an influencer on the internet because they want to make money, sell clothes, sell cosmetics, sell how you look nice. This is the generation that we live in today. And I'm sorry, we need to be that change. We need to show that example that we need a better generation that just focuses on the outside rather than on the wholesome aspect of our lives every day. And of course, realize that the actions that we're doing today is having a significant impact on the rest of the world, especially those, like I mentioned before, who's trying to make a living by making clothing, and also those that are ending up with waste, huge waste dumps of textiles in their backyard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Rolf, for those words of wisdom and for pointing out how the conventions are so important in all stages of managing wastes. We're now turning our attention towards an area, a very important area in relation to this, that of livelihood and labour issues, because of course this cycle of production of fashion and you know, there's a labour force behind it, and there's many issues that we need to consider in this particular topic. So in this respect, our next speaker, Maria Beatriz Melo de Cunha, is a specialist in sectoral and programme issues from the International Labour Organization. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Oh, I just want to start thanking the ambassador and UNEP and that's for the invitation to be here today. It's really a pleasure. And to thank you for all being here to discuss this. I want to give you a different perspective about what we call the textiles, the circularity in textiles, and how we see waste in terms of hazards, but also in terms of impacts. So when we talk about waste, we immediately imagine circularity, circular models, or recycling, or upcycling, and so on and so forth. But this comes with a cost, also with new opportunities. So this is, I'm sorry, I forgot about, this comes with a cost and also with opportunities. So a study from the ILO from 3 years ago estimates that a circular model in the economy as a whole, not only in textiles, would put 7 million jobs at risk. So meaning that activities, economic activities that will end, or occupations that will not exist anymore. But at the same time, they would create 7 million new jobs if countries and societies decide to go on circular. So that is a big contribution to livelihoods. We are exchanging the type of employment. We're not destroying employments because we want to be more circular. We are just changing the occupations and so on. We see that to adopt this model, there are some limitations that we all face, and here with other colleagues from the UN agencies, we are very aware of this on a daily basis. Companies, they don't have access to finance to become more circular, or small and medium enterprises, they have difficulty to access to new technologies. We see that this sector, textiles, clothing, leather, and footwear, that I'm responsible for, we see a lot of poor working conditions. We see reports and videos in the screen every day. This fast fashion or this model of production, low-cost production, leads sometimes to low wages and safety and health hazards. Some of the works, especially in the informal economy, they don't have access to social protection, social security benefits, pensions, and health insurance. And there is also a lack of compliance with regulations. because there is no capacity in the countries to implement. Of course, this is depends on the type of clothing that you're producing, type of textiles. There are several industries that are very advanced, but others that are still produced in a very hazardous way. So I don't want to generalize, but I want to just to mention here that those are problems that we be looking into when we talk about waste, about textiles. So what we can do, or what the ILO can do, we adopted three main approaches, three main areas of work. First is supporting a just transition. This is very dear to us, the concept of a just transition. We try to integrate decent work into other policies and programs, and we strengthen governance systems. I will very quickly, because I know that we have a very short time here. On just transition, we are focused on four main areas of work. So we want to create more opportunities, and to create more opportunities in a circular model, we need to provide training and reskilling programs for workers, because they are going to do things differently and using different technologies and processes. We want to, there are a lot of legislation, labor legislations, environmental legislations. We want to assist governments, workers, and employers to really implement and comply with labor legislations and regulations. We want to expand social protection, especially for the informal workers. So if we see the pictures and so on, we see sometimes these piles of textile waste and children and informal workers collecting, sorting the waste and so on. So, and they have no protection at all. So they don't have a benefits, or children don't go to school. And so those workers in the very end of the supply chain, they need to be protected, and they need to have benefits that can provide them for living. And for us, it's really important to have a dialogue. So everything that we do, we need to sit down with workers, employers, and governments to try to find solutions and to try to follow common approaches. Circularity, just very quickly, also some elements for discussion. We really think that we need to integrate what we call the decent work agenda. So this is meaning that we need to respect for fundamental principles and rights at work, like child labor, forced labor. We all know the problems that we find, especially in the production of raw materials in some developing countries. We need to create an environment that small and medium enterprises can make the change, can really move to a new business model. We need to invest in green jobs. We need to train people. We need to create a new mentality or new operations. We need to raise awareness, like Paula mentioned here. That's important that the society and the constituents know what we are dealing with. And we need to strengthen governance systems. So I just want to look into some of the main policy documents that we have and that we are referring to. It's how we can apply collection of international labor standards, the standards that regulate our daily life, our daily working life, into a promotion of waste management and recycling. So there are several conventions that can help us doing this. There's also a just transition guidelines. This is very, as I said, very dear to my heart, because it gives you ideas on how you can make this transition to a more environmental society. The code of practices, this is the code there, and I'm very proud because the last chapter of the code refers to waste effluents and how to address the waste effluents. So we have the identification of all the risks related to waste management, to safety and health. Of course, we are looking into safety and health, and provisions on how to address those risks. This is really, really interesting because this was prepared specifically for this sector. And I want also to announce a new guideline that is coming very soon in May. That is guidelines on how to promote decent work in recycling in general. So this will be discussed in a meeting of experts at the ILO in May, and also we hope that can contribute to the discussion that we are having here. And then we work in other international agreements with everyone here on the table, with UNEP, with the Basel Convention, and so on chemicals and plastic use and so on. So this is a more general UN. But now I want to give you some examples on how we do this in practice. No? So it's how we can work together and how we can promote a change. There is a big program, what we call Better Work. It works in 13 countries. So Better Work assesses working conditions of 3,000 workers in 13 countries. So a very detailed program that goes to the companies and works with managers and workers on how to improve working conditions. And one of the indicators refers exactly to what we are saying here. How managing skills or chemicals and other hazardous substances affects human health. There is another one that is ILO, UNEP, and we also work with the regional center, the Stockholm, on managing the use of chemicals in textiles mills. We are working in Pakistan, and we map out all the risks that 100 workers are facing in their daily work on the management and use of chemicals. And we are also working with the social security system to identify what is the impact, because they are referred to the medical and security system when they have accidents and diseases. So we are looking into respiratory problems and how the lack of prevention and the lack of personal equipment affect.
Maria, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but we're very pushed for time. So if you could try and wrap up, please.
I will stop here. And so thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Maria. There's lots of very interesting, but in the interest of time, we do have a couple more speakers, so I want to give them the opportunity. So in the same vein, our next speaker, Matthias Knapp, is the head of fibers, textiles and clothing at the International Trade Center. Matthias, over to you.
I think that'll work. Maybe I take this one. Or I speak a little louder to get this microphone not to work.
Oh.
So thanks very much for the invitation. Let me be here. I just was mentioned already this morning, earlier by Jana. Our ethical fashion program is here, but I'm working with manufacturing, so we have different programs looking at textiles and clothing. Now it works. So I would like to look at from the perspective of manufacturing, not necessarily small artisans. We look there on waste from two perspectives. One is avoiding waste in the first place, and then secondly, okay, what do we do with this waste, including what was mentioned earlier, resource efficiency. I don't know whether, yeah. So if it comes to avoiding waste in the first place, I think the biggest problem what this industry has is overproduction. And sorry, there's a figure here, but there are estimates from the Commission, the European Commission, others, that about 30% of what is being produced is never being sold. So if you have a system where you produce 10 shirts, in order to sell 3 at the full price, 4 at the full price, 3 at a discount, and 3 is being discarded. So this business model does not work anymore. It needs to change. And it's a business model that brands and retailers invented or pursue, because they're looking for the cheapest kind of garments in order to pay for this 10 shirts that they produce, but they only get 4.5 out of that, or can only sell 4.5. So this needs to change. How can this be changed? It cannot be changed only by brands and retailers. I think the manufacturers need to be a very integral part in this. So they need to be part of the equation. How can this be done? But I think the solution lies a little bit into process innovation and also data innovation. But not only in the last mile, where brands look into and forecasting and what we as consumers might buy or might not buy, but also along the supply chain, because you have all the fabrics, all the accessories. All this is also inventory. And if you put this into one word, maybe you can say postponing. So taking these big orders, 6 months, a year in advance, huge quantities, and put this into smaller pieces, closer to the selling part. That way you have a better forecast accuracy of what might be selling in the end. But you also then reduce the overproduction to a certain extent. And very important, and not really looked into it, it frees a lot of capital that's stuck in inventory. In unsold products, also fabrics and trims and accessories, all in the supply chain. And this capital can be easily invested into sustainability and other things. So that when you ask me, where's the money lies in the supply chain. You just need to free it. But that's only one thing I wanted to talk about. We have done a publication on this. You see it on the screen together with the International Apparel Federation. It's called the Banyan Tree, Buyers and Suppliers in Fashion, where you can find more details. We are now working with a Sri Lankan manufacturer and a national brand that everybody knows to document this and to come up with a playbook that we would like to share with the industry how to replicate. If it then comes to, okay, nevertheless, there's waste, no? And what do we do in ITC in supporting developing countries and reduce post-industrial waste? Of course, we work also on circularity. We have our training programs on circular business models that we launched last year. We started in Sri Lanka. We're doing it in many other countries now. One sees clearly that there is not a full understanding what circularity means by producing countries, including manufacturers and governments in developing countries. This is now replicated in Sri Lanka itself by large multinational companies, by the Board of Investment, the Export Development Board, to find a way as a country in how to deal with post-industrial waste. In many developing countries have no idea on an aggregate what is the post-industrial waste they produce. So it started with also earlier, understanding what actually waste you have. We also, of course, look into eco-design for circularity, because in the end, circularity starts with design process. No? You have to design a product which then can easily either recycle or reuse to the longer and what have you. Mentioning our ethical fashion initiative, they are working with designers in Kenya on upcycling, for example, uniforms that have been collected in the market in Kenya. If it then comes to resource efficiency, which is also a very important subject for waste, because lots of these chemicals, energy, water, greenhouse gas emissions need to be better managed overall. So ITC has been two tools here: the Green to Performance Toolkit for SMEs for various sectors, but including textiles and clothing, that it helps companies to understand circularity, understand environmental performance, helps them to send a baseline. Many companies themselves do not have a baseline. They do not know exactly what is the energy they consume, what's the water they consume, what's the chemicals they consume, especially not at unit level. So we help them to do this in terms of energy, water, wastewater, greenhouse gas emission, and chemicals. We have it there. And then we apply this to a second tool, which is the RECP, the Resource Efficient and Circular Production tool, where we basically coach factories, small and sometimes also larger companies, to look into this aspect. So we go into the factory, we look into what are you consuming in terms of energy. For example, what is the energy you use over time? Is it going up? Is it going down? What are the hotspots? What are the machines that consume most of it? Is there something wrong in the system? Is the machine running correctly? Are the pipes broken or other things? Are there possibilities to find more energy efficient machinery? And then look into also the energy mix. You get this from the grid. Is the grid coal based? Or can you put solar panels on, or do you have wind energy? Yeah, for example, our Ethical Fashion Initiative is doing something to power the dyeing facilities with biomass from cashew waste. And so these issues we're looking. And you're on the right-hand side, and that's my last thing now, we have applied this into manufacturing in some of our projects. And you see some of the results there, that companies on aggregate had about 6,200 megawatts reduction of energy, 11,000 tons of greenhouse gas emission reduced, 70,000 cubic meters of water reduced. But most importantly, for them, it's nice to have it and it's probably good, but it makes good business sense for them because they make savings. They saved $1 million on aggregate, all these companies. So if they understand, companies, that I can increase my profit by reducing my costs, the investment can go into it, apart from what I said in the beginning in terms of overproduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Matthias. I understand we are allowed to run over slightly, not that we expect you to spend a very long time here, but I beg your indulgence just for a few more minutes because we have 2 more speakers and then we can take some very quick interventions from the floor if time allows. So without wasting any more time, we're turning our attention now to a bit more to the business perspective towards zero waste in the fashion and textiles. And our first speaker on this topic will be Irene Martinetti, who's the Manager Circular Economy at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and the lead circularity initiative dedicated to fashion and textile. Irene, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Mission of Turkey for the invitation. We're delighted to be here. As the Chair mentioned, we'll be talking a little bit about the private sector. We work closely with the private sector. And we see that the imperative for businesses in the fashion and textile value chain to adopt the new value creation models is more urgent than ever. We see there's environmental impacts, there's chemical management, safety and health concerns that are mounting, and that means more regulatory pressures. There's the geopolitical and economic landscape, ever increasingly volatile, complex and uncertain for businesses, and also consumer demands are shifting. We see younger generations engaging in resale markets. We also see new customer segments coming into play, the so-called silver generation, preferring products that last longer, that are multifunctional, and I'm also, as my colleague Rolf, wearing something that is very old, but still looks pretty sharp. So we see that there's this big shift happening, and frankly, the existing high volume, low cost and built-in obsolescence kind of models are being driven towards the edge. Now, that also is looking at some of the trends that we see in terms of the 700 billion opportunity that has been mentioned, and financial institutions starting to pay attention to these opportunities that can be generated by shifting business models to circularity. Now, we stand really at a moment where companies have to rethink their strategies in this kind of environment, and finding ways to achieve long-term growth, as well as reducing environmental impacts and also having a more positive impact on the environment. At the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, we lead global communities of businesses that are driven to make sustainability performance a key driver for competitiveness. We believe that in that sense, circular solutions are the only way today for business to meet their growth plans, while also meeting the important imperatives that you also work with on climate, nature, and tackling inequality as well. Now, by designing for longevity, we know that companies can have the opportunity to generate value from longer lives of garments and footwear. We also know that engaging in circular value chains can prolong the life of garments and footwear. and generate lower costs, for example, that are linked to more difficult, frankly, access to resources, resource depletion, but also cost of compliance. We also see that there is a business opportunity for companies to meet that growing demand for high quality, lower environmental impact, and more durable, safer products. Now, today, however, companies have a really difficult time scaling circular business models. We know that the opportunities are there, and these have been quantified extensively, and we know that there is an urgent imperative to change ways. However, the scaling is not there. And so there's many reasons why that's the case. We see that mostly from our vantage point, implementation pathways for circularity are unclear. The internal and external financial rewards systems are also lacking. And the scaling of circular innovation is also something that we see lagging, despite we know there's fast evolving progress when it comes to technological innovations. We see those every time we engage in a conference from the sector. Now, from a WBCSD perspective and sustainability performance, we echo that we can't manage what we don't measure. And we worked for a couple of years now with fashion and textile companies to develop a set of dedicated metrics that companies can rely on to adopt the right measures of success when it comes to circularity. And these must drive profitability, but also deliver those positive impacts on climate, nature, and equity that I was mentioning before. With this work that we're sharing with you today, you can download the guidance from the QR code. We develop and deliver a clear roadmap that companies can use to basically bring about circular action, circular activities and strategies, and integrate circular strategies in the company. We aligned these metrics with international standards. That means lower cost of compliance, using one system to report to a number of voluntary and mandatory requirements. And overall, we are really keen to provide companies with ways to improve decision-making and understand what kind of operational investments have the highest sustainability impact, while also generating economic value. Now, working with the right set of KPIs, and here is an example of a product level assessment. We see that business transformation is it's not just about choosing materials and products. It's very much about what Paolo was talking about, cultural change. And even within companies, we need to understand that companies have to completely change the way they're operating. Procurement teams must prioritize those regenerative and renewable as well as recycled inputs. We see that designers have to create products that are built to last longer. And then also marketing and retail business strategy, they have to shift and move from pushing those fast trends to promoting more value and longevity in the products. Now, we see that the key to long-term success, in fact, with the circular transition indicators work and in general measuring circularity has to do with integrating circularity into every part of the business. And this means setting clear goals and collaborating across value chains and also aligning financial incentives with the sustainability and always making sure that the leadership can champion those efforts and monitor those efforts. When it comes to collaborating with the value chain and creating a language that allows that collaboration, we also make available this report that we've just issued so that it's available for manufacturers as well. In China, it's being socialized there. To conclude, we see that the industry has a huge opportunity and responsibility, but also that innovative and creative drive to lead this business transformation that we all need for lower impact. So we call and take this opportunity to call all companies to engage with these indicators, to engage with measuring circularity, managing it, and integrating it in corporate decision making, and so that we can all deliver products that are rethought, that are redesigned, that are sourced from the right materials, that are safer for us and the environment, and ultimately delivering low waste and more sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Irene. We're now coming to a close. We've now got the last speaker. I know it's a difficult position when you're the last speaker, so thank you for bearing with us. Of course, there are alternatives to man-made fibres. We do have lots of opportunities to develop other things. And the last presentation we're going to hear this evening is one of these marvellous natural resources that we have, and about better cotton and sustainability in the cotton supply chain. And I'm very happy to welcome Erin Ozole, the Senior Manager for the Better Cotton Initiative, to share with us some thoughts. Over to you, Erin.
Thank you, Ambassador Akçapar, the Grand Mission of Turkey to the event, for the very kind invitation, and thank you to all the panelists for today. So I am going to talk about better cotton and sustainability in the cotton supply chain, but it is mainly going to be about farm level waste management, and not necessarily in the cotton supply chain. Because better cotton is a farm level standard. We call our standard the Better Cotton Standard System. And this is a farm level standard for producing sustainable cotton. And then we are farmer centric. So our mission is actually helping the cotton communities survive and thrive by improving the environment in which they grow cotton, and by also improving their social and economic well-being. Better cotton is grown in 22 countries, and we license 22% of the world's global cotton production. And in this slide, you can see the global reach of better cotton and where this 5.47 million metric tons of cotton are grown. We are a member association headquartered in Geneva, and we have more than 300 retailer and brand members who are member to our association. You can see some of their names on the slide, and what we enable is these members committing to sourcing more sustainable cotton compared to their conventional ways of sourcing cotton. And here on the slide, you see better cotton members are committed to sourcing 100% of their cotton sourcing as sustainable. While most of our income with which we support our field operations come from the retailer and brand members you saw on the previous slide, we actually have members from all over the cotton supply chain. So starting from farmer and producer level, supplier, manufacturers, retailer and brands. We also have civil society members. All these members have an equal voice on our governance, and that's what makes our governance multi-stakeholder and unique. And here I would like to say a few things about the Better Cotton Standard System. As I said, this is a farm level standard, and as I'm sitting at the beginning of this table today, our standard is actually at the beginning of the cotton supply chain, because with this standard we are actually we're ICL code compliant, and we have 8 principles and criteria which you see on the slide. We are making sure that the farmers who produce better cotton comply with these standards, after which they get licensed as better cotton license. And now I will tell you about a little bit about waste management at the farm level. The farm level waste management is where better cotton has direct influence. Cotton, as the chair has rightly said, it's a natural crop, and the waste of cotton is biodegradable. It's a food and fiber crop. The textiles are made from the cotton lint, the white part of the cotton ball that you all know. Cotton lint, that's called cotton lint, and then the linters are used for hygiene products and stuffing. And then the rest is cotton seed and leaves. From the cotton seed, we produce cotton oil, and from the waste of that seed, what is produced is animal feed, and the leaves are compost. 50 to 75% of the cotton mass is actually biodegradable if treated within 3 months. And with our principles and criteria, we have farmers implement practices to compost and use natural ingredients to care for. The other criteria that's very important for waste management at farm level is the reduction in the use of pesticides and the reduction in water use. What I have not put on slides here, but what I will tell you from our most recent impact study in India, in the last year, we have reduced pesticide use by 53% on better cotton farms in India. Water usage for irrigation is down 29%, and farmers are saving money. Their overall costs by reducing the use of those inputs are down by 15.6%. So with those tangible results, I think I've completed my time and hand back to the chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And, apologies, always the last speaker, it's very difficult. Permit me, if you will, to take 30 seconds just to share with you some of the key takeaways that I heard this afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the speakers, of course, for their contributions. We heard many, many different themes. We explored the topic in great detail. I think one key theme which came out this afternoon was the need for partnership. We heard about the Alliance for Sustainable Fashion. We heard a little bit about the livelihood aspects, about the business models. So there's a need for looking at partnerships to make zero waste a reality. There's many, many business models that can be shown which are effective, which economically are viable, that also look at the alternatives we've just had about cotton. Most importantly is that we need to aim at changing the culture. And this is a very important aspect of driving zero waste, and how we need to get particularly young people to understand and to look at the impact of their decisions and how we can influence them to move away from this consumerist approach to fashion. The question was asked, can we solve it? Well, yes, I think we can. We've already seen significant advances. As I mentioned at the opening, maybe 10 years ago, this wasn't even on the radar to look at this particular, well, waste in general, but this particular stream in particular. So there are many, many opportunities. But the thing is, all of these initiatives have to start somewhere, and that's where we must show our debt of gratitude to the government of Turkey, and Ambassador, to your government, to your First Lady, who were the ones who pulled this idea, this concept together in the first place. It needs somebody to lead and take this forward. We can follow and support, but without those courageous first words and the concept coming from there, this never would have happened. So we'll stand ready, all my colleagues here, the Geneva Environment Network, UNEP, UN Habitat, of course, our other UN partners, and of course, all of the partners who've been here this afternoon. We're happy to support this initiative and continue to do so. So on that note, again, thank you, Government of Turkey, for your leadership on this. Thank you to all my colleagues. Thank you as the audience for staying that little bit of extra time to hear those last presentations, which made a marvelous summary of this meeting. So with that note, without further ado, thank you very much for your attention, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you a good evening. Thank you.